I drove around after the minister was out there, and he forgot to say that on Christmas morning, he was out with the garbage contractor giving directives as to where things had to be picked up. And, I jokingly told him that instead of spending Christmas with his family, it looks like he's looking for an excuse to get out of the house to go pick up garbage, and he soon will be known as the garbage man. But the minister at least is showing that he's taking his job seriously, that he's willing to do something about it, and something was done about it over the weekend. I hope that the minister not only speaks with the Minister of Finance about some of the issues, but that he keeps a keen eye as well on the budget that is available. So if we need to make budgetary movements in order to accommodate the cleanliness of the island, because we have never in the past many years been in a situation like this. It has nothing to do with the new contractors only, because there are other contractors who are responsible for some of the districts on the island, contractors who have been working for government doing garbage collection for several years, and their districts also are in a deplorable mess. It looks like people have lost sense of pride and cleanliness. It doesn't matter. Another issue that needs to be coordinated is the roadside cleaning, because before, the garbage contractor was responsible for the stray garbage on the roads. Now they have separated it. And you can recall the former minister had issued some 10 or 11 contracts, and the only one that had to go back on bid was Phillipsburg District, which accounts for instance, the grass in front of our new home here, the new government building, not being in the condition it should be in, but there is no one yet who has been awarded that contract. But there seemed not to be a clear separation as to who is responsible for what. You would see people would cut their grass, people would trim their trees, put the brush and the bushes outside, and nobody picks it up, because the garbage contractor says it is not garbage, it is grass and it is bushes. He does not necessarily know where it comes from. And the guy who's doing the roadside cleaning, his feeling is, we did not cut it. It is not part of the work that we have done, so it stays there. I even had to call Mr. Payne, Jonathan Payne, to direct him to some people who have been complaining, and he assisted them with removing debris from in front of their home. They admit they're the ones who put the debris out there, and he charged them a small fee, and it was removed, and the place looked tidy. But the minister has his job cut out for him in terms of coordinating this all and bringing it back to a level where it becomes not only acceptable, but we can become once again the friendly, clean island that we had been. It is a challenge, and I'm sure that the energy that our youngest member on the team has displayed, it will be done. So again, I want to thank all of you for the support you have given the Council of Ministers over the past year that we have been in office, and we look forward to your support throughout 2017 as well.
And my first question, I will direct it to the Minister of Finance. Minister Gibson, are you aware if the St. Martin Medical Center is up to date with their taxes? If not, is the tax inspectorate going after them?
The SMC has been struggling financially for a long time. They have built up a huge tax debt, mostly wage taxes that are owed. I believe the amount is somewhere around 6 million. In the plans for the new hospital, I was approached to forgive taxes, and I explained that we don't forgive taxes. Taxes have to be paid. And an arrangement was discussed at the time that within the plans for the construction of a new hospital, that probably the property itself would be transferred to a new organization that would manage the hospital. There'd be a sale of the land that's there and the buildings on it that would allow the SMMC to generate some income, and that income that they generate from that particular action, part of it would be used to pay off the taxes, the back taxes that they owe. No, I'm not aware that the taxes have been paid. There is a delay as far as the construction of the hospital is concerned, but that was the original plan, to be able to get those back taxes settled.
As I continue in the same direction, because of the non-payment of taxes at SMMC, there are a number of workers, and as you may have known that the SMMC has a lot of foreign workers, their working permit cannot be processed. How does government or the institution plan to peddle this away so that the workers will not be there illegally and that their working permits will be processed?
I think one thing doesn't have anything to do with the other. A request for a working permit for somebody that you need to work should be issued independently of whether or not the organization owes taxes. You cannot punish the organization, put them in a situation that they can't function, because that will be more detrimental to the organization than issuing the work permit that's requested for them to be able to function. So I think that should not have anything to do with whether or not the organization owes taxes. Of course, these questions, the one relative to the work permit should be directed to the Minister of Finance, Minister of Justice. And as far as operationally is concerned, it should be directed to the Minister of Visa. But in attempting to explain it, in my view, my personal view, an organization that needs a work permit, first and foremost, government should accommodate the infrastructure needed by any business to be able to obtain work permits for those people that the organization needs. And it should not be punished because it runs arrears, especially not the SMMC, as far as payment of taxes are concerned.
Another question. SLS just recently sent a letter to government, Country St. Martin, and SZV for non-payment of bills amounting to 139,000 guilders. Has government made any arrangement for to pay SZV so that SZV can make the payments to SLS?
I'm still the Minister of Finance, not the Minister of Health, in charge of SZV or SLS. But the premise of the question is that this SLS has a bill that SZV has to pay, and where the government has made arrangements for SZV to pay its debt. It's either SZV's debts or it's the government's debt.
Government's debt.
If it's government's debt, then I think the question should be put to the Minister of Health, because I'm not familiar with that problem.
I can answer that. I'm familiar with it. The problem that you have is that there's a package of services that are paid for. A change to the agreement is needed, and that change has not yet been formalized. So to use an example, if, for instance, government does not pay for, let's say, pap smear, anyone who goes and needs to have one, it is not paid for because there is no agreement. I'm just using one example, which is not the correct one, but it's a word that came to my mind. But at any rate, as the lab has been providing the service pending the formalization of an agreement, SZV is saying I can only pay based on the agreement. So if the list says you pay for water, you pay for juice, and you pay for vitamins, that is what we pay for. If government wants them to pay for ice cream and for chocolate, then government has to include it on the list. That has not yet been finalized. In discussions with Mr. Carty, I was told that they have agreed not to jeopardize civil servants because SLS, sort of out of the clear blue, was threatening that if it is not paid, they will not accept the doctor cards anymore. So to avoid that, an advance payment was being arranged with SZV to SLS to avoid this from happening, and that should supposed to have taken place just before the Christmas.
Thank you so much for the explanation, Prime Minister Martin.
Thank you very much for your questions in this first round. Bibi, Hilbert Hart, Today newspaper, you have the floor.
Yeah, good morning. Minister Gibson, I have a question about the central bank. It was quite some time ago when the controversy with the president erupted. I remember correctly that you said that within 6 weeks, Curaçao and St. Martin would appoint a temporary replacement. I don't think that has happened yet. What's the situation now?
No, it has not happened. The area that is involved with that problem concerns a recommendation that's needed by the board of the central bank to suspend the president of the bank.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, the board of the central bank was not functioning. There was a stalemate, and they did not even call a meeting of the board to deal with the requests from the ministers of finance from Curaçao and St. Martin to obtain that recommendation for the suspension. Given the circumstances that we deem to be a crisis that, notwithstanding the fact that the board was not functioning as it should, the ministers of finance of Curaçao and St. Martin decided under those circumstances to suspend the president of the bank anyway. The necessary steps have been made to have what is called the country resolution, landsbesluit, to formalize that. The steps were taken to send it to the respective governors of the two countries. When that request went to the governors of the two countries, they were of the opinion that a recommendation from the board was necessary in order for this to be put in place. The stalemate in the board had to be broken. As a result of that, we embarked upon appointing new board members or additional board members to the board with the expectation that the new board members and the existing board members will be able to organize a meeting to treat and deal with the request from the respective ministers of finance for the suspension. That meeting has not yet been held. It's scheduled for January, I understood.
Mr. Trump is not working. He's not back at the bank at the moment.
No, he is not.
Okay.
He had asked for 30 days vacation, as you can recall.
Yeah.
And pending that, based on the bank's charter, the president had the right to appoint someone to to replace him for the duration of his absence. That person, together with the managing director who was in place, both of those persons are presently running the bank,
Okay, thank you.
pending the final decision that's required of the board to formalize the suspension.
Okay, my second question. Do we have any idea about the energy bill that the government is going to be facing for this building?
If we have an idea of the energy bill, no, I have no idea. We haven't received one yet.
No, no.
I'm sure that in the planning, that the necessary research was done in that respect. I'm not aware of it, but it will be substantial, I agree with you. But if we add up all of the bills that we had for the buildings that were rented by government before, it should not differ substantially. Because if you accumulate all those bills, and you calculate the areas that are being used compared to what was being used before, the difference is not that great that it would be a concern. We have just paid, in the arrangement we made with GBE, we have paid off some 17 million guilders that was owed to GBE. That's in addition to the splitting of the reserves we got from GBE. But those were bills built up over years that were unpaid. Right now, we owe GB zero.
Okay, thank you. A question for Minister Emmanuel. You mentioned that several haulers have been fined. Could you tell us what the height of the fine is and how you're going to collect it? Are you going to deduct it from the payments or what?
Well, yesterday having a meeting with the professionals down at Vromi, because I called them and I asked them for an audience to sort of guide me through how the process works, because clearly you can see that the job was not being done, or it wasn't being done properly, if I should use those words. And I was made known that in the past they have issued warning letters to some of the haulers concerning the garbage, and the next step is another warning, and it wasn't adhered to, and then the fine should have been issued. So I asked the question, have the fine been issued? And they said, no fine have never been issued, and I asked why. And it was sort of, well, we sort of give them a chance. And my thing was, they had enough chances, and I think the letter should go out and the fine should be issued, and I think it was like to the excess of about 3,500 guilders is 2,500 one way and an additional 1,000 guilders. That brings it up to about 3,500 guilders.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Hilbert. Alida Singh, Daily Herald, you have the floor. Good
Thank
morning.
you, Cedric. Happy holidays to the Council
Thank
of
you.
Ministers. Minister Emmanuel, just to follow up on my colleague's question, that 3,500 guilders, is that a one-time fee or is that accumulated over a certain period of time?
It's a
for the
one-time
haulers?
fee.
It's a one-time fee.
Yeah, but it can be continuous, depending on the number of violations that you incur according to your contract. Like I said, remember, I'm just being brought up to speed on how these things function and how it works. We had a very lengthy meeting yesterday, myself, Mark Williams, the members of the cabinet, and we went through a lot of stuff. And like I said, at one point in time, enough is enough, because they were given verbal warnings, written warnings, and the next step haven't been taken. And I was like, no, issue the fine, and let us see where we go from there.
Prime Minister, you have issued a dispensation for businesses in Phillipsburg to open on the 1st of January, based on your current position as acting minister of TIAT. This is the third year in a row such a dispensation has been issued to businesses in Phillipsburg. Don't you think, does the Council of Ministers consider that perhaps 1st of January should not be considered any longer an official holiday and just simply make it a full working day as normal?
No, I don't think so. It is just for businesses in the Phillipsburg area because of the request made to accommodate the cruise ships that are here. I know many years ago, we have had this discussion, and sometimes it depends on which side of the room one is politically, that one looks at it from the glass being half full or being half empty. I know we have had calls to make sure that the cruise ships, the people who are coming to the island are made aware of our holidays, and they are made aware of our regulations. And yes, we do our utmost best to bring as many cruise ships as possible here. Jump high, jump low, the cruise ships. If they don't come to St. Martin on New Year's Day, they would have to go to St. Kitts or to St. Thomas, some other destination. And throughout this region, New Year's is, let's say, a holiday. But if you invite people or allow people to come to your home, you know, it's like telling the neighbors they're free to drop in on New Year's Day. But I'm sorry, my wife and I will be in the bedroom looking at television. And they can walk around in an empty kitchen where there's nothing to eat and nothing to drink. That's not how you treat your neighbors, and that's not how we would want to treat our guests. It is up to the business to open or not. It is up to the employees to say, well, I'm not working, it's an official holiday, and it is incumbent upon the business operator to adhere to the laws of the land, the labor laws, in terms of it's a holiday, and if the people work on a holiday, they have to be compensated accordingly. If we would lift the blanket and say, no, it is not a holiday, then it applies to the entire island, and that is not the idea.
Following up on something that, a statement you made in March of this year, of course, we're doing our year in review, so we're coming across some of interesting statements that were made. In the month of May, you mentioned that it was time that St. Martin had its own Attorney General. Is that something that you have looked into or you're following up on, considering now the number of cases that we've had recently, the intense work by the TBO team, etc.? Do you think that there is still that pressing need to have an Attorney General to look at our specific situation?
As long as we do not have our own Attorney General, that remains applicable. I cannot see something happening anytime soon, now in the future, that would make it not necessary. It would need to be that they have appointed a Superman who can zap himself over to Curacao and back to Aruba and back all over the place and keep his finger on everything that is happening throughout the different communities. I think it is important that we have one who feels the pulse of what is happening on St. Martin, who is here on top of things on St. Martin and not spreading him or herself thin. So that remains a desire that lives not only with me, but with other members of the Council of Ministers as well, that St. Martin has its own Attorney General.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your questions, Alida. Second round of questioning begins. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Cedric. I turn my attention to Minister Emmanuel. Minister Emmanuel, as per the fines given to haulers, can you tell me exactly how many haulers will be fined?
Well, at this moment, I'm not going to call the name of the haulers, but I'm going to tell you there were two separate haulers that we have issued warning letters and fines to, and possibly there will be more in the future because, again, like I said, the experts was out on the street also yesterday going through the districts and taking a look, because I've asked them, not only take a look, but take pictures. And behind the pictures, you write down the location. And by doing that, you can pinpoint exactly which hauler is responsible for that area. So that is an ongoing process. Again, you want to be a little bit lenient. In my case, I don't want to be lenient at all. I want the problem to be solved, and I want them to do their jobs. So yes, more fines in the future will be coming out from the ministry.
Minister Emmanuel, I was following the social media, and residents of St. Peter's, they have taken a number of pictures where there was a pile of garbage, an enormous amount of garbage in front of apartment buildings. And they even show you pictures where the guys were picking up the garbage, and moments after, not even an hour after, the same residents dump more garbage right there. Does the ministry, the Department of Romy, has any policy in place as to when people can throw out their garbage and when residents can be fined for littering?
Well, again, in our discussions yesterday, I was brought up to speed with the terms of reference. And it is a good terms of reference, but in my opinion, it's a bit heavy. I believe it is. It's very wordy. And I know the area that you're talking about. I know exactly the district that you're talking about. But like the Prime Minister mentioned earlier, at one point in time, one should take a little bit of pride in their district and their area, because it is hard. And for me, it's very sad when you clean the area. And because I've seen it for myself. You would see people watching you. And the moment you leave and you come back, there is more garbage again. However, it is government's responsibility to see that your area also is looking good, if I should put it that way. And we have a responsibility to ensure that the contractors and the haulers do their job. So as much as garbage is put out, it should be picked up. What happened is that what I've noticed is a lot of the bins are very small. And you have 6 and 7 and 8 apartments in that location only where a bin is. But the surrounding area have only the residential bin, the small bins that you can pull. When they are full and the garbage is not picked up immediately, or the day that it's supposed to be picked up, they would go by the bigger bin, but it's also full. But you have a situation that the Prime Minister mentioned where you have garbage and you also have hauling of garbage. What happened is that the bin would get very, very full, and the bags would fall on the ground, and you would get the mattresses, and you would get the fridges, and you would get the stove. The garbage collection would not touch that type of bulk garbage. However, the same contract for the garbage, the side contract is also for that same contractor, whether he subcontracted out to someone else. But he also is responsible for the bulk garbage. So that's why I said the fines went out. But we have to look at the situation. And one of the things we was looking at yesterday is separating the garbage collection and the bulk collection. And it's an ongoing discussion.
While looking at the garbage and collection, and honestly, I do believe that Peter is being paid for Paul here when it comes to fining the haulers and not doing anything towards the residents that are committing the littering. But that's my opinion. Are you looking into the fires on the dump? Because there could have been quite a number of fires these past months. Have you been touching on that?
Well, here's the thing, Bibi. I'm not interested in who's paying for who. I'm just interested in getting the job done. And the people of St. Martin have been plagued with this situation, in my opinion, for too long. For example, we were up in the St. Peter's area and an almond tree was cut down. And again, if you take it upon yourself to cut down a tree in your yard, you should have a responsibility to know that you take that debris to the dump. You cannot put it on the side of the road. Because, who should pick it up? You're the one who took a decision to cut the tree. The debris was on the side of the road for 3 months. 3 months. The crew that picked it up yesterday used 4 bins to remove the debris, which means it was a lot. When it comes to the dump and the fires, I mean, 10 and 15 years ago when the study was done in terms of the capacity, it was known that the dump has already reached its carrying capacity. It is not rocket science. We all know it. You need the waste to energy to deal with this situation. And that is also an ongoing discussion, and we are looking into it very seriously. The fires will keep happening because of the methane gas that is under the ground. If it's not released, if it's not contained, if it's not harnessed, you're going to keep getting this situation. It is simple. The dump has reached its carrying capacity. It cannot hold anything anymore, and the solution for it is waste to energy. Again, and we move on from there.
Thank you very much, Bibi. Hilbert, you have the floor.
Yes, I have a question for Minister Marlin about the security company of which the director was recently arrested. We know that this company is employing people with a criminal record, which is in itself commendable, I think, to give people a second chance. Were it not that this security company is also providing services at the prison and at the harbor. Are you comfortable with keeping that security company doing that kind of job at those locations, or is this subject of any kind of discussions?
The issue surrounding the security company or the director of the security company is one that I do not have details about, other than some of the information that is in the papers, and I don't read all of it all the time. Nonetheless, the first responsibility lies with the management of the harbor. The harbor is who have a contract with a security company, and the harbor would need to know to what effect the presence of security guards there employed by that company would have an effect on the functioning of the harbor. If they are given access to secured areas and they are persons themselves with a criminal background, then I think we may have a problem there. So I do not think that is the case. I'm sure the harbor has looked into the matter even before. If you're having people who have access, let's say like the airport, you need to have a security clearance to be able to gain access to certain places. Now, having somebody present at the airport because 6 years ago he had some kind of incident is one thing. Having them having access to certain security areas or security areas is a different story. The same would apply at a prison. From what I was made to understand, the guards hired in by this company or through this company do not have, they do not carry guns, weapons, they do not have access to certain areas. But it's the first priority, of course, is of A, prison management, the Minister of Justice, and B, the harbor, its management and its board to look into these matters. But it is important to, if you want to call it, be reminded of the sensitivity of it all.
One more question for Minister Emmanuel. We talked about fines for the haulers, but what about fines for the people who throw all that garbage on the street? Is that something that you consider as well?
Yes, oh, most definitely. Again, like I said, we took stock of the situation. We walked through the area. We questioned a few individuals, and we asked, who put this here and who put that there. I mean, the tree was right in front of the home, and we spoke to the owner, if I should put it that way, of the home, and he did acknowledge that yes, he had a crew chopping down the tree, and it would not happen again. He didn't know, and I told him in the future, you should bag it. If you don't have no one to pick it up or take it to the dump, go and get contractors, garbage bags, you bag the debris, tie it, put it on the side of the road, and then it will be picked up. But to throw it out just like that is unacceptable, and in the future, yes, fines can be issued, because I believe you need a permit to cut down certain trees and stuff like that, because, again, what we don't know, but many of us have trees on our property that's 100 and 200 years old, and many of them are monuments and we don't even know. So yes, you can receive fines for simply dumping trash on the side of a road. Residents can receive fines for that.